Welcome to the Being in Medicine show. I'm Corey Anderson.
And I'm Jeff Mars.
Together we aim to revolutionize the healthcare experience for patients, clinicians, and all team members by unlocking the transformative power of human potential.
Each week, we explore with you and our guests how embracing our authentic selves and choosing who we are being can affect the nature of healing, leading to profound transformations in our lives and in the lives of those around us.
Join us today on a journey through self-discovery and empowerment as we unlock the human potential within each of us. Welcome back to Being in Medicine. We are lucky and so excited to have our guest with us today. Today we have Becky Robbins. And Becky Robbins stands as a beacon of inspiration and transformation, having been at the forefront of the personal development and coaching industry from its very inception. Before she became a guiding light for leaders and visionaries, Becky dedicated herself to the compassionate field of nursing, where she honed her skills in empathy and care. Today, Becky is a celebrated artist and mentor, renowned for her ability to guide artists, leaders, and visionaries through profound transformational experiences. Her work is both intimate and expansive, offering one-on-one mentorship and leading intimate group sessions that empower individuals to reach new heights in soul-aligned leadership. As an international speaker, Becky captivates audiences with her wisdom and insight, inspiring them to pursue their highest potential. She is the architect of the transformation retreats known as Art of Becoming, where participants embark on immersive journeys of self-discovery and growth. Becky's creative vision extends beyond her personal development. She is in the pre-production for an innovative show called The Art of Art, which celebrates the creators behind the objects and experiences that shape our world. The show promises to feature stunning cinematography and showcase the brilliance of artists and innovators. In a testament to her artistic prowess, Becky's art has been selected for a lunar landing delivered by Elon Musk's Falcon rocket, marking a historic moment as her work becomes part of a celestial gallery on the moon. Looking to the future, Becky is set to become the brand ambassador for a groundbreaking health and wellness industry, with details to be announced soon. Her commitment to innovation and well-being continue to inspire those around her. Becky Robbins is not just a mentor and artist, she is a visionary architect of change, guiding others to embrace their true potential and create a legacy of impact and inspiration. Welcome, Becky, to the show. We're so happy to have you.
That's a lot. That's a mouthful.
I absolutely love it. And I love that your art is going to the moon. How exciting.
Thank you. It actually is already up there.
Oh, it's already up there.
Yeah, it went up like a year ago, February, and it's on the south side of the moon. So when you look up there, it's hanging on by gravity.
That is fantastic. So you have art on the moon. What a creation that was.
Well, yeah, I mean, who could ask for that? You know, like, hey, I have an idea. Could someone help me get that up there? So.
Well, we're excited to have you. And thanks, Jeff, for being here too. And we're going to have a great conversation with you about being in medicine and your experience. And you have been on a journey in life, starting out as a nurse and moving into professional and personal development, and, you know, having experiences yourself as a patient and so forth. So we're just thankful for you to be here. So thanks.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here too.
Yeah. Well, we're going to dive right into things because I've gotten to know you over the last year or so and gotten to hear some of your brilliant storytelling around some of your experiences in medicine. But tell us a little bit about how you've come to understand or engaged with what we're doing here in the Being of Medicine. How did that come about for you?
Well, I think what I love is the three of us had such a wonderful dinner a few months ago and really got to understand like what our passion is around medicine and life in general, because of course everything in life continues to remind us of how important it is to stay healthy and be healthy. And I feel like you know what, I'm grateful. I don't normally talk about age much because I've said to people saying like, oh, I'm too old for that, or I'm too old to learn or whatever. And I always say, you know what, I don't bow down to that God of aging, because I feel like it's, you know, we're body, mind, and spirit. There's so much that happens in our, you know, up here. So when you talk about being in medicine, I think the being part is being in life, so that the medicine part is not some traumatic, horrifying thing, but rather, the adjunct to being healthy. So I'm really interested and committed to being healthy and vital for however long I want to be on this planet. So
That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And what a wonderful time we had to spend together and get to know each other. And part of that story that I was alluding to was a little bit about your own personal journey through medicine not too long ago, where you had to be a patient and show up in a particular way for your own health. Would you share that story with us a little bit and give us some background on that experience?
sure. Wow. I mean, that was such an experience for me, because I had a vaccination related injury that was a blood vessel pushing on a nerve in my brain that was cranial nerve number 7, and it was causing spasms in my face that got worse and worse over time. Made my, like, it looks, a couple summers ago, it looked like my face, like I'd had a stroke, like a mini stroke or something. Not that
Yeah.
many, and no one could quite figure out what the solution was. When I finally figured it out, I found my neurosurgeon on Instagram. And I have to tell people that, because I mean, we think social media and all of that, but there's another guy whose name is Dr. Perry Nicholson, and he talks about the blessing, the importance and blessing of he calls it the big 6, all these 6 points where your lymph glands empty into your body, and our lymph moves up through our body. So we need to move and get, and that kind of thing to be healthy. So as he was talking on a podcast about someone who had severe TMJ pain, they brought in Dr. Stephen Johnson, who I ended up, after interviewing many neurosurgeons, I ended up going all the way to New Jersey to have him perform my surgery, which was such an odyssey to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, in the beginning of this story, you had a vaccination related injury, and you were moving through this experience looking for someone who could create an experience for you, looking for someone that could diagnose, care, and treat what you had going on. What was your mindset around that process? How did you bring yourself to experiencing that and working with physicians to ultimately find Dr. Johnson?
Having been, in the outskirts, I'm going to say the outskirts of medicine, because I was really young as a nurse, and I still, to this day, I love anatomy and biology, and it shows up in my art. And I could sit down with a dictionary or a book on anatomy, both of which I have, and spend a whole evening just loving all of that.
Yeah.
But the answer to that question is, I think that we need to be, and people talk about having an advocate for yourself. And I had to be my own advocate, because no one knew what to tell me. And it was such a new kind of thing and a new injury. So my selection of a surgeon, I'll tell you, it was, I think all 3 surgeons that I interviewed were probably really good at what they do. I mean, they were top of their field, right?
Yeah.
However, I think having a relationship with someone who cares. I remember walking out after I went to New Jersey all by myself, and had to, rent a car and drive an hour, and all that kind of thing, to sit with these 2 men. One was Dr. Gary Hare, who's a specialist at the dental. It used to be Rutgers University. Like, he spent an hour with me talking about trying to diagnose me, because no one really knew what was going on, like what was happening in here that was creating all of that. And then the next day I went to see Dr. Johnson, and in between that, they ordered an MRI. They called, one of them was in surgery, called the other one who answered the phone in surgery, and ordered a specialized MRI. And when you're in a place like that, I was so I felt vulnerable, because I didn't know, and I had to make a decision. And the first guy that I went to had such, here in San Diego, he was so abrupt and short with me, and didn't really want to answer my questions. And it was the first diagnosis I had that I felt was a real one. And I went and sat outside on a little bench and sat there and cried by myself. And so choosing someone that you can relate to. And I think it's all about who they're being while they're being with you.
Yeah. Yeah. What was it about Dr. Johnson and his partner there that showed up for you that, man, this was the connection that I really was looking to have? What was it about their way of being?
The time that they spent, because I know that doctors these days are so slammed with another and then another and another patient. So that was one big thing.
Yeah.
And then Dr. Johnson, he didn't rush me. He said, like, do this whenever it feels right for you. When you decide to do it, I'm here for you. And here's my cell phone. You can text me anytime, which I did do. And I can still text him and he'll answer me.
Yeah.
I had a friend last week who has this horrifying thing going on with her, completely unrelated to her brain. She had this, I can't remember the medical name for it. I looked at it once, but it's flesh-eating bacteria that if you don't catch that, you're going to be dead in a couple of days. And and I contacted him. And do you know anybody who's experienced an infectious disease that you could pass on to me? So I feel like I'm like, what an amazing thing. And I can call him anytime I want, which I don't, because I respect I respect him so much.
Right.
And the other thing is him saying to me, like, I'll take really good care of you when the time is right. He gave me comfort.
Yeah.
And then can I tell you one other time that was important is that, and I think sometimes I'll speak for myself. Like, I'm so independent. I can take care of myself. And a lot of people said, like, hey, we'll go with you. And hey, who's going with you? And I'm going, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. I have a friend coming on the day I get out of the hospital, and we're going to hang out for a few days together. But you know something, it would have been so comforting for me to have somebody with me, because I got into the hospital at 6 a.m, as I was told. I'm dragging my luggage along with me. That there was a power outage because some traffic accident hit the power pole. And
oh, wow.
And I told Dr. Johnson this, and now it's like almost dark in there, and people are wandering around, and I didn't know what was going on. No one was in there telling me what to expect.
Yeah.
And I would not do that again. I would not try and be so brave that, I don't need anybody there to support me and walk me through that. But here's what did happen. There was a chaplain that came in, and I don't know his name. I wish I did. Wherever you are, my friend, God bless you. And he came in and he said, introduced himself, and he said, I was at, like those old emergency rooms where you just like a curtain, bed, like that.
Yeah.
He came in there and he said that, may I pray over you? Would that be okay with you? I was like, please. I would love that. Yeah. And he gave me so much peace of mind. It was like something that was really important for me.
Yeah.
Before I go into the biggest surgery of my life, that I was about to have, that was such an unknown factor. Other than Jeff, my knee surgeries, which was another unknown thing. That's a different story.
Yeah.
But I just before, I had an anesthesiologist on this side, another one on this side. It looked like I was having a heart transplant in the theater, the operating theater. And just before they were gonna, give me this stuff, and have me go out, I said, wait, I have a question. And everybody got like really quiet, and because I'd forgotten to ask him. Because this is one reason why I didn't choose another one of the surgeons. But I said, I forgot to ask you the question about cerebral spinal fluid, because I know that once you pierce that bursa, that can all just flow out. And how do you keep too much of it flowing out all over the operating table? I had in my mind, like gushing out. And what how do you do that? And so then he chuckled and he said, oh my gosh, that's such a good question. He said, here's the thing. I do want some of that to flow out. So I have a special suture, so not too much of it comes out, because your brain then can relax, so I can get into your brain. But he said, but here's something you'll love knowing, is that your body, your miraculous body, creates all new cerebral spinal fluid every 24 hours. So I said, okay, go ahead. Here I am.
Yeah. Yeah. Jeff, what do you have to say about that story? I know we've talked about it before, but what are your takeaways?
I love that story. I heard some things in it, like, for example, when your surgeon says, I will take really good care of you.
Yeah.
I got the sense that you experienced that as authentic. Yeah, and that falls into the competence in our E = MC² formula, the competence and then clearly expressing the compassion. And so the way I heard the story is you felt like you experienced competence and compassion,
Mhm.
and then furthermore even turned it over to heard it in two ways. One, may I pray over you? Would that serve you?
Yeah.
Having the faith, and then having your doctor describe the miracle of our bodies. Our bodies could not, surgery wouldn't work if we weren't created in such a way that our bodies are a miracle and we have that miraculous capacity to heal. So there was a lot of brilliance in that story you just told us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Thank you for sharing. And those are good insights, because the way that Dr. Johnson was showing up for you, to me, did feel like he was demonstrating compassion and competence through who he was being, which then created an entire experience for you as the patient that resonated with you, right? And created that experience. And I know a little bit about this story. Obviously, we talked about it before, but Dr. Johnson was creating an experience for you as a patient. But when you came into that hospital and you interacted with some of those staff, it was a slightly different experience for you. And no judgment around that. But tell us a little bit about that experience that you had in the hospital itself as you were coming in, and what that created, because I think it sets up a little bit of where we could go in this conversation. So.
Well, actually, he resigned from there, so he's not there any longer. And
Sure.
I'm not going to give myself credit for that, but it was an awful experience for me, because, and the hospital, I know that they're working to, I think they're building on and stuff like that to accommodate. But I was on one floor that was called the neuro floor, and on the neuro floor were people who are going through the kind of drug and alcohol withdrawal that requires you to be hospitalized because of the severity of it.
Yeah.
There were also elderly people in there that had been brought in by the assisted care facility. If they exhibit confusion, that's the word that the nurses told me, then they go to that hospital. So they're in there. And then people that are having neurosurgery are in there, and there are no private rooms. And so I woke up with the most severe, he had told me that too, that would probably happen, vertigo, just like the floors, the ceiling, and the ceiling. It's not like vertigo when you have a concussion. This is like a whole different version of vertigo. And I couldn't even move my head or any of that. But in the bed next to me, this poor woman she was crying, and I felt bad because I didn't have, I didn't have like a buzzer to ring or nothing, not a phone. And it was just, and she was crying, and then there were alarms on these hospital beds that would go off like an actual alarm that said, do not get out of bed, do not get out of bed. And I'm thinking, I don't know, what am I doing? I was so out of it. I don't even know what am I doing that's wrong? And so they were all for protection's sake, but wow, it was understaffed, and I felt sorry for the nurses. And we actually talked quite a bit, the nurses and I, about that, because they're understaffed, and I feel sorry for a situation like that. And I still don't understand nor agree with 12 hours on and 12 hours, and 3 days on of 12-hour days, because I don't want to be the person that comes out of neurosurgery on someone's 11th hour when they're exhausted, and they're taking care of so many people. And so I respect the medical profession, because it is harder these days. And I think, I love what you guys, the commitment that you have to that, because, with insurance issues and people. And the other thing I want to say is, I know that in South Dakota there, you do a lot of, we talked about this, the Indian reservation there is really, really, it's really rough life. And I saw them also on Instagram, called Sages to Saddle, which is wonderful. They're raising money to try and create indoor arenas for these kids to go in the long, dark winters, to help give them something to do. And when you told me that you were doing pro bono work for these kids that are like doing these relay races on horses and getting hurt, I already respected you, Jeff, but that just sent it through the roof for me, because that's huge. And I've been through 2 knee surgeries, so I know what that's like.
Yeah. So I would like to touch base a little bit about, so you set us up nicely for that experience with medicine and the deep respect for the professionals that are in it, with the stress and the burnout and just the demand is quite high in medicine. And, you have an extensive background in personal development and personal growth and coaching and so forth. And I mean, anyone who's listening can hear from your intro that you are at the forefront of personal development and coaching. How do you see a role forward or the future for healthcare professionals, and how can that integrate with the work in the personal development space? And like many of us, and what this is about is being, right? Who we are being and how we show up and create who we are being every day. What role do you see that playing out for medicine with your experience?
I can tell you one from just a couple of days ago, because this woman that I told you about, I've known this girl since she was 10 years old, and she used to come to some of our events with her family. And we've kept in touch over the years, and I coached her, was a mentor for her, and for a while. And then I got a message a few days ago, actually, saying from her sisters, saying Erin is in ICU. The doctors are not optimistic.
Oh, wow.
And that was the text message I got. And she would like to, she's on a ventilator, but she would like to FaceTime with you. So my week last week was, it was a horrible feeling that I had, like, oh my gosh, I've known this young woman. She's got 2 small children, and like, what in the world is going to happen? I don't even know what's going on. So when they told me what the diagnosis was, and then she was writing notes back and forth to me and holding them up so I could read them. And the biggest thing was that gave her so much, and she's a cancer survivor, which now we found out that that's come back also. So that's another complication. But she said that the doctors told her that they were not optimistic for her recovery. And she told them with notes, no one's allowed in my room in the ICU that ever says something like that to me.
Yeah.
And I respected her so much. I was like, so grateful she said that. And she said, well, I learned it, I learned because of you. I have to stand up for myself, and who's going to come in here and tell me that I may not live through surgery, much less the second surgery.
Yeah.
So she made them write it on her chart in front of her, that nobody's allowed to come into the ICU with anything but good news for her, or being optimistic for her. Right. And when I found out 2 days after her second surgery, her sister sent me, it just gives me chills to think about it, sent me a text message saying a miracle has happened, and the doctors were able to get all the infection, and she's going to be okay.
Wow.
I cried. Of course, I cried because I love this girl, and I just, my gosh, but we laugh about the story of going down the Grand Canyon and the participate in your own rescue story. And, do you know that story? You probably do, but
I don't know the story.
Oh, well, you're going to use this a lot then, Corey, because I was long ago, we're going down the Grand Canyon, and we're going to go over all these big rapids and level 6 rapids and all of that. So we had to go down to the bottom, hike down, you get down there. And of course, everybody was a whole bunch of Hollywood people and stuff. And they had brought way too much baggage. So at the bottom of the river, and it's like 115 degrees. And now you have to unpack all that. Of course, nobody's got their personal assistant with them. They're
right.
You have to unpack all the baggage you brought and put it in these little rubber sacks and fold it up and tie it up and all that. And meantime, the guide is saying, hey, I'm going to give you the rules of the river. And he told us all, it's like a land grab as soon as you pull over at the end of the day for you to go figure out a place to put your sleeping bag and all that. But the most important thing, he said, was the river is going really, really fast. And this is like the fastest time of year. And if you fall out of the boat, which is likely that you'll fall out of the boat, and we didn't have helmets or anything, so it's likely that you will fall out of the boat. And obviously we can't stop. So you will need to somehow get yourself to the bank, climb out, and find us where the boat is downstream. In other words, you need to participate in your own rescue.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I will definitely use that story in lots of different spaces.
Like daily, I think we participate in our own rescue in some way.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so useful in medicine.
Yeah.
We tell our patients all the time that it's a team and everybody matters, but you as the patient are the most important person on the team. Same concept.
Yeah. right?
That's great. So I'd like to get us back a little bit because, here we are talking about being in medicine, and you and myself and Jeff have done a lot of work in kind of our personal growth and our personal understanding of how we're showing up. Give us some insight on how can people engage in that, or what role does personal development have in medicine moving forward? How do you see that?
Well, when somebody talks to me about personal development, what it means to me is, I was just saying this to my daughter this weekend because she has a 6 and 10-year-old little boys, and we were talking about developing yourself personally, like so that you've experienced other cultures, that you've experienced a lot of responsibility, things that you've got to figure out. Being resourceful is another one, like huge thing about being resourceful. And I think that was one of the first things that I knew that I had to master at the very beginning, because there wasn't such a thing as coaching, and there's barely anybody doing like fire walks. And that was the first fire walk I did. Was interesting, because it's a real deal. I mean, you really have to focus, like really focus, and unless you're a Maharaja or something, and like I just got back from India, so that's a story. But the bioelectrical field around your body increases when you get in an intense state long enough to like do like 4 steps across some burning coals. And I had it all, made it very safe for people, but that you did have to participate fully in knowing what the job was ahead of you to do that.
Yeah.
So I think that all those kinds of things, that like resourcefulness and stuff, and not being, and with our children and parenting is giving them responsibilities and letting them know what it is to win. And I think, to me, that's personal development, and trying new things, trying things that are hard, figuring stuff out. Like I learned to fly helicopters. I learned to fly. I learned to fly. I still am a scuba diver. All the kinds of things that you do in life that maybe you don't want to, but you're afraid to do, but then you figure that out. And then the people side of it, I was around a lot of people all the time. And I also like my solitude and privacy and stuff like that. But I think having compassion comes from first for yourself, and forgiving yourself and being kind to yourself, because I hear so many people say things that I just wish they wouldn't say. I was on a plane yesterday and heard someone behind me say, I am like, it's making a statement. I am always this way. I'm always forgetting things. I'm always dropping things. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. It's like, oh, please let me talk to you. We need to create that. I think we get caught up in too much humility sometimes, more than just like getting, have so much certainty in the unknown. And that's one of the things that I've got in the thing we call our document. But that phrase, I have wonderment and certainty in the yet unknown. And I think, boy, in medicine, there's so much of that, because we don't know. I'm sure, Jeff, when you open someone's leg up to do like a knee surgery, and what what's happened once you get in there. I'm sure you know what you're going to do before you get in there, but just the certainty and the unknown, then that transfers to people around you. And so I feel like my role back in those days was to create systems, and also relationships, everything. So yeah.
I love that. Certainty in the unknown. Jeff, how does that translate to, your world as an orthopedic surgeon? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think that's what you said is brilliant. There are times, a lot of, we like to have routine, but routine doesn't mean routine. Routine means that we have an efficient process to get things done in a way that makes the most sense, the most efficient, cut down on the risk of errors and things of that nature. But routine doesn't mean routine like it's the same every time. It's every case is different, particularly when you get into a complex revision or something, and we envision the future, we'll speak it into existence at the beginning of the case, where here's a team committed to doing what's necessary to create the most incredible revision, right, hip replacement possible. But we get in there, we can see the the desired created outcome, and we just deal with what's right in front of us in the moment. And there are times where things show up that are unexpected, and they could create a sense of frustration, or even being scared, or whatever. But it's that certainty that will even speak out sometimes, like, I don't know exactly what we're going to do next, but I do know that we're here creating the best hip revision possible, and that is going to be our outcome. And we'll use our skills and our instincts and our intuition to guide us through this process. So I think it's necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was working with I was leading a workshop today with our ambassador program with some folks at the hospital, and we were talking about our doings in medicine and all of the things that we have to do to take care of patients, to keep the hospital moving. And we really created the distinction with everyone about, our doings are being led by who we're being. And so you can see, when people show up, being kindness, compassion, competence, when we're being that we're here to perform and create the best joint replacement possible. When we come from that being, then the doings of what we have to do naturally flow from that being, right? We've talked about that on this before. And it's a wonderful place to talk about. And it was really a wonderful workshop today for people to really connect with that and to see, when I'm showing up being whatever it is I need to be, compassion, competence, kindness, love, support, empathy, all of those things, then of course our doings become much more fulfilling when we're being those things that we are. And so I just put all that together for the listeners there, because who you are being in surgery, showing up being the team that's going to produce the best possible outcome, the doings of the surgery flow through who's showing up that way. That's my take on it.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, something also, I think we assume that we assume, or me, assume that everybody's going to do a good job, there. But I remember you're reminding me of a woman, two things. One is for my knee surgery, actually the neurosurgery also, that there was some nurse that leaned over me and she was just before I went out, and she was just like, I promise you, we're going to take good care of you. And that I know that that you guys, you two, but to hear it from you, and you're so soothing, Jeff, the way that you talk to people. But also wanted to say something else about the night before my knee surgery. And I've had two of them, but the night before my knee surgery, I'm a skier, so that was like the price to pay, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, but the night before, I felt sad. I felt sad for my knee. I was saying this to someone recently. Like I was kind of just touching my knee and just feeling like I'm sorry for what's about to happen, because I didn't know. I know it's brutal, and even having been in medicine, and I love knowing what's going on. I did not do that. I did not go and look at YouTube of a knee replacement. I didn't want to see I didn't want to see all the construction instruments and stuff.
Good decision.
I didn't want to see what was about to happen to me, because, and sometimes I do, but that time I didn't. And
yeah,
so it's just that. And I remember going, arriving at the hospital that morning and just being sad, kind of, that how did I get, and I'm in good shape and I work out and all of that, which, by the way, I did prior to I think that's the most important thing that anyone could know is you, another participating in your rescue, is you must be in good shape before you go in for knee surgery. I know so many people that are not, they didn't do well. And I can't, I'm looking at them who didn't work out, didn't take care of themselves, didn't build the muscle that the knee really needs in order to have a successful knee replacement. And they're walking around with a cane, and I'm like, wow, it just stuns me, that people don't do what you guys tell us to do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you were participating in your own rescue. around your knee replacement for sure by
Yeah.
staying that way. Yeah. Jeff, what questions come up for you in this conversation?
Yeah. One question that kind of came to my mind was when you were talking about your young friend who was in the ICU
Mhm.
with flesh-eating bacterial infection, and the doctor or somebody said something on the order of, I'm not optimistic, or we're not optimistic.
Yeah.
It occurs to me that to some extent, that's the indoctrination of medicine.
Mm.
We're supposed to lay crepe. We're supposed to under promise so that hopefully even an adequate outcome looks like over delivering. We don't want to create unrealistic expectations. We don't want to get in trouble. We want to be able to document in the chart that we gave all of the relevant risks, and there might be some bad outcomes. And I experience that as a possibility that by doing so, there's a risk of speaking a bad outcome into existence. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I 100% agree with you, because we are conscious beings who create with our mind and especially with the intensity of an emotion. You attach intensity of emotion along with an intensity of a thought, and now you've got probably a creation in the making for sure. So, I mean, I think that some of the dispenser work, I mean, I think that it's such a reason. I remember when I was in nurses training, one of the things they told us, which, when you're a brand new trainee and they try and weed out the weak ones, but I remember them saying, like, be careful what you say, for, people can hear you even when they're unconscious. And I always remembered that about people not talking, not saying something to someone when they're in that place. I mean, I did a post recently about when my dog died also, and when my father died, and about what happens in that process when someone's close to death in that process, like my father was. And I had lung cancer and brain cancer, and it was a long haul for him. And he was a mountain man. He loved being in the mountains, and he was one of those kind of guys. And everybody loved my dad, but he wanted to go home, and he couldn't get there before he died. And one afternoon, the afternoon before he died, I went down the hill here to a bookstore, and though I don't, Providence moves, right? And I picked up this one and only book. I've never seen it since. I probably got rid of it, and I only read one passage in it, and it was called the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and it was talking about how people that are ready to go have a really hard time when somebody's hanging on to them and grieving and crying, and and oftentimes it happens when someone will leave the room, and then that person is free to let go, and whatever your perception is of moving into spirit or whatever. That also happened that happened with my dad. I left my dad's side, and an hour later he also left. And it happened with my dog, as I wasn't there, and I felt this brief version of that story was that the vet told me, it was close to the end with my dog's life, and it was the morning that my daughter's baby was being born in LA. So I couldn't be there at the hospital, and they called me right when I got to the parking lot in LA, and they said, I think you really need to make the decision now. It's the time for him to go. And I felt like, oh my God, I'm not even there. I'm not there. And and since I'd read a post by a friend of mine who said it's so terrible when someone doesn't have the courage to be with their pet when the pet is getting put down. And I felt guilty all these years until a week ago, and I was walking on Dog Beach, I live right by the beach, and all these dogs are playing and running and jumping. I had this profound moment. I got chills through my body. I don't know if it was my dog Murphy speaking to me from the other side, or it was God speaking to me, saying, like, this is why Murphy left, because he knew it would be harder on you if you stayed with him while he's being put down. He did it for your sake. It set me free that day. So I think, how we treat, we are so strong, but we're so fragile. That I say fragile just because, like you said this at the beginning of all of this miracle that I get to inhabit. Oh my gosh, I stand inside a living miracle. It's an amazing thing to watch how healing happens, I learned the other day that we have gold in our blood. Did you know that we have gold in our blood? I did not know that. I mean, we are so specially beautiful. And also all the million things going on in this body, which was my love of medicine and still is. Like, I took millions of notes in anatomy class because it's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And now we know even more than that. So I'm so happy you guys are doing this, because these podcasts, because I want people to be able to listen to what goes on behind the scenes. And a lot of the times we see you only when we need you, and then I don't get to see you again.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm fixed and you're moving on, and so.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. What would be your advice to the healthcare professionals listening right now? What most importantly would you want to share with them as a, just coming from Becky Robbins? What would you want them to know about? What advice would you give them?
To remember your divinity.
Oh.
And remember that of who you are with. I mean, we are first that, and after that, we're a patient.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's wonderful.
Beautiful.
That's great. What do you say about that, Jeff?
Yeah, just the ability to be with another, see another, hear another, and see the divinity and hear the divinity that's inside of them. Takes it to another level of, I'm not sure quite what the word is for it, but responsibility in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Responsibility meaning, like, this might sound a little woo-woo, but sometimes I just imagine that I'm not like doing anything. I'm just stepping into the moment and following the guidance, and it's someone else's hand, something greater than myself, that's going to make the difference.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
You know what? I love that you said that, because I think sometimes we think that, you go into an office and people are so busy and you don't get that even eye contact and personal feeling from someone. But I want you to know that I think about, in fact, I was in New Mexico over the weekend, and with the 6 and 10-year-old little boys, and I hit a home run, Jeff, and I ran the bases, and
Oh.
we were playing baseball, and I was like, I love it that I can run. I can run with these little kids, and I'm grateful for that. So the way you touch, when you are an orthopedic guy, and our mobility is essential in our lives, and I hope you get to see the aftermath, because I'm going to write a note I wrote a note to the veterinarian the other day, because I wanted him to know my gratitude. And I'd been wanting to do that for 6 years, and I hadn't done it until that incident happened. And I read somewhere that they have a high rate of, stress and what goes on with that. But I also am going to send a note to my Dr. Kopp, is my guy. I'd love for him to be on the show with you guys, see what I can do about that. Because I want him to know. Like, guess what? I can run the bases. I can, I can go do sprints on the beach. There's only one thing I can't do with my knees. And I said, the last time I saw him, which is quite a while ago, and I said, listen, I can't, like, it's hard for me to sit on my heels, or child pose like that. He's, oh, you'll never be able to do that. I forgot to tell you, you can't do that with this knee thing. I'm like, all right. Well, if that's the only thing,
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. We often in medicine lose sight of all the folks that we have helped. And that is one of the things that, I think leads to some of the burnout for many, many providers, is that we lose sight of the people that we have helped. And so me personally, I think I'm grateful for when people do say, hey, I'm doing well, I'm still here. Usually it's outside of the hospital or outside of the clinic. And for those, providers and nurses listening, in medicine, we often see what we call kind of repeat customers, people who come back, maybe their health hasn't been taken care of, or maybe they have, conditions or problems or complications that occur. And we kind of lose sight of all of the people that we do take care of that do so well and succeed. And I remember early on in my career working with Jeff, we talked about this, and it's like, man, who are we helping? What are we doing here? Like, where are these people? Why do we keep seeing these same people over and over again? And I had to step back and go, oh, just think of all the hundreds and thousands of people that we've taken care of that haven't come back to see us because they're doing so well. And I want to bring that up for some of the listeners, because there are so many people that you've touched and helped that are doing so well. And you have to find a way to be grateful and remind yourself of those folks.
And also when you're being a mentor and a coach, because, to get a phone call like I did from this girl, Erin, her sisters the other day, is because of the relationship that we have.
Yeah.
And that feeling, there's another young girl too, that's, her situation is terrible, but the fact that she feels comfortable contacting me, and I think, and one of the other things I wanted to mention that I think was really important is the hospitality part of the hospital. I think you called it that, right? Unreasonable hospitality.
Yeah, that's a book that is Unreasonable Hospitality. Yep.
But I think that had they set that up differently, and I'm sure they're going to, and I know Dr. Johnson now gets to create his new facility any way he wants it. He's taking all the personnel he wants, exactly how he wants it, as he should be able to have, as you all should be able to have it be the way you want it. But it can be so, well, the word is frightening. It is frightening to be in a hotel. I wish it were more like a hotel room. I mean, in India, you can go to India, and I've not done this, but a really good friend of mine who's an amazing mentor of mine in India, Ben Buckley, wonderful mentor. And when he's gone to the hospital, and we talked about this, and it's like going to a 5-star hotel with the most amazing food and beautiful views. And, and it's like a hotel room and not like a hospital. And the one that I went to in Toms River, New Jersey was, whoa, you couldn't sleep. Two people crying, people screaming across the hall because they're going through drug withdrawal. And with the room was this dark, horrible room. And I think we don't live in an environment like that when we're at home. I think it needs to feel more comforting and beautiful, and having something to put your eyes on that's not, that can like take you away, from that stuff.
Creating a healing environment, right? One that touches every aspect of the human being.
And not to forget beauty. I mean, we love it's beautiful tree, the beautiful ocean, all of that's important for we humans, to feel like we're not just hurry up, get in, get out, next, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the themes that I've heard over and over in this time that we spent talking together is the power and the importance of relationships, right? And building relationships. And that is something that keeps coming up for me, is the importance of relationships. And so the relationship you built with Dr. Johnson, to trust him, right? The relationship that you have with those taking care of you. How do you go about being in a way in which you're creating those really important relationships in the area of medicine? How do you bring yourself to those? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think I've taken time with almost every doctor that I've been with before we even do anything, is to thank them for all the years of education and time and money and sacrifice and everything that it took for them to get to that level of specialty. That's just, that's a lot. So I go into it with that level of respect for someone. And I think that lays the groundwork for a reciprocity of a relationship. And I do my homework, with who and where I'm going to go. And I mean, for me to go all the way to New Jersey, people were saying, well, are you serious? Like San Diego is like a hotbed of biotech, but but that's the guy that I felt comfortable with. And I know that probably you don't want to give everybody your cell phone number, but you know what? It's so rare that I've texted him, but when I do, or he texts me, you know, like, hey, how's it going? And the spasms in my face didn't stop right after surgery. And I thought they would. But he told me, he said, okay, here's the thing. It can either stop them altogether. You'll wake up and there won't be anything like that, or it can dwindle over time, or it didn't work.
Yeah.
But he said, I know it worked because I have this one procedure that I do during surgery to see I'm right there.
Yeah.
You know, all that. And I was in India. I mean, when I saw you guys in January, I was barely a month. I was a little over a month out from surgery.
Right.
So that was that wasn't easy that week for me to be there.
Right.
But I got back from India and recently, and all of a sudden it came to me like, oh my gosh, I've not had one little facial spasm whatsoever. It's all finally gone. So I texted him and told him that, and he was so happy to hear that.
Yeah.
So the fact that I have that ability to text him good news and like asking him about the infectious disease, I've never done that before. Like, ask him, please, can you help me with something? But I think that he obviously enjoys hearing the good news, you know, from me, and and I enjoy hearing from him too. I feel like I'm a human and I know he works 12-hour days, because I know when my surgery was, and those are the kinds of days he works. He does surgery all day, every day. He loves it. That's why he does it.
Yeah. Sounds like you've created a deep and powerful connection with him that is lasting, which is just testament to who you're being. And I just want to acknowledge you for who you showed up to be the patient, and who you're continuing to show up to be for him and for anyone around you. So
thank you so much,
Becky. Tell us a little bit about where you're at now and what you have on the horizon for you personally. Tell us about you.
Well, I'm excited for a couple of things. I told you guys at dinner about the television show called The Art of Art. And it seems like it's been slow, but I think sometimes you go back and look at something and you say, oh, I would have done it a little bit differently. So I've given myself the grace of a little bit more time to get it the way I want it before I put it out into the world. But what that is that's how I found out there's gold in our veins, just because I was telling a guy that he's a coin collector, and I was telling him something that I'd heard about, like, everything that we need is right. And I've said it in the show when I've been interviewing people, everything we need to create with is right here on this planet. It's not getting trucked in from somewhere else. And he said to me, well, actually, you've got gold in your blood. You've got traces of gold in your blood. And that came from like supernovas or meteors that crashed or something that is now in the environment. I was like, okay, so I'm going to go with the idea that I have gold in my body. I like that idea, so I think that I love the show. The show is going to be fabulous, and including me coming to South Dakota to film the kids who are doing the relay races on horses, because that'll be a great show. And the show will be about the creating of saddles, like people who create saddles. Like,
that's going to be
imagine what that even goes through, and a bunch of. So that's one thing. I'm excited about. I love having extreme health and access to the things that make us. And I think all the time medicine is getting better, research is getting better, and we're figuring those things out. And being able to go to another country, or go on Chat GPT or whichever is your favorite one, and ask questions and get some really good advice if it's accurate. And so those are important to me too. And I'm doing a little bit of a different version of mentoring. I'm going to do the first one and only retreat in October that will be doing some of the things that you've never done before, that will be fun but different, but add so much value to life, and also some deep diving into some things. The first part of the certainty and the unknown is the word wonderment. So that's such an important part.
Yeah.
So that's sort of like, when I wrote that originally, it was because I was afraid of the unknown. I thought, like, wow, if I could just have, wonderment in the unknown,
Yeah.
But then it's evolved into like curiosity in the unknown, because everything's unknown until we do it. Everything's unknown until you slice open some. I shouldn't have said it that way. Somebody's leg, right? But it's like for me, painting, even, I'm always in the unknown, because otherwise life would be boring if you're doing the same thing. So
Yeah.
that's important to me. And then my art is really is part of what I do and what I think.
Yeah.
There's a thing about art or creativity of all kinds as a cure for anxiety, and I think it really is important for us to have something, because we're creators. We were created, and to create. When someone says I'm not creative, it's like back to those I am words. It's like, come on, I can help you be creative in 1 minute. I can show you how to draw a straight line, which is, I've never had any formal art training, and I just started doing it and jumping in and trying something different. And I'm ready to try something even more different. So I think all of those things keep me busy.
Well, that's wonderful.
Amazing.
I'm really excited for the art of art. That the storytelling behind that is just going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
So look forward to that. And thank you for being on the show today. And I just, you have gold in your veins, and you're laying down gold today. So nobody step over it, all the way from, participating in your own rescue, which is a fantastic story. I'm going to be using that a lot now. Right. And then just remember your divinity and step into it. And, so thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing all of your wisdom and sharing your gold with us. So thank you for being here, Becky.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you both so much in what you do. I hold you in a high place.
Likewise. Thanks, Becky.
All right. Thank you all for listening. And thank you, Becky, for being with us today on Being in Medicine.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you for joining us today on the Being in Medicine show, where each week we open the transformative power of connecting our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual nature to how we show up in medicine.
If you find this conversation valuable, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you or someone you know has a story to share, contact us at beinginmedicine.com. See you next time.